This young lady is Silke van der Broeck, and she is going to talk about modular development the neoScores way. Please have a round of applause for Silke.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Silke. I'm a developer from Belgium. I'm specialized in JavaScript, single-page web applications, and especially at the moment in Ampersand.js. Does any of you JavaScript developers out here know it or have played around with it already? Who has? All right. All right, that's nice to see because most of the developers I talk with don't really know it yet. So it's nice to meet some people who have some kind of experience with it. For this talk, I'll be talking about, sorry. I'll be talking about neoScores, the company I work for, which is it's a Belgium startup specialized in sheet music and in digital sheet music. So in fact, it's a sheet music renderer and also a sheet music shop, but more on neoScores later on. So I suggest we just start the talk. You can tweet your questions to me too, and to neoScores. The questions that won't be answered, we'll try to answer later on. So let's get started with a short introduction on neoScores, just to get you filled in on everything. So neoScores is in fact the iTunes for sheet music, or that's what we aspire to be. At the moment we have a sheet music reader, so that musicians can take their sheet music on stage with them on their tablets, or they can even use big screens if they want to, because it's a web app that works on all kind of devices. We are also building a shop at the moment, so that musicians can also buy new sheet music through the shop and immediately use it in neoScores. As I mentioned, it's a web application. That was a decision made by our founders a while ago, simply because we really want to be cross-device. It should be possible to use neoScores on all kinds of devices, be they really small screens or bigger screens, even these larger screens. I can already hear a lot of you think, aren't there a lot of other apps that do digital sheet music? Well, that is true. There are other competitors, but what makes neoScores a little bit special is that we use another format. We use the music XML format, and music XML is, like the name says, an XML format created to describe music. You can see a little example of one of the music XML. This is a very simple note, description of a very simple note, a D note, an 8 note. Yeah, this is extremely simple, but you can describe very, very complex musical pieces with music XML. The cool thing about it is that we have semantic knowledge of what is on the page, and we can use that to our advantage to render very beautiful sheet music. So, how does that work? Well, all our scores are rendered on the client's device itself. They are rendered in a web worker. For those of you who don't know that, that's a second thread in the browser, so that it does not block the browser, does not cause freezing, and the user can do whatever he likes while the web worker is rendering and calculating things. So this web worker starts calculating with the music XML where every little note, every little slur, every little tie should be. And then it returns an SVG string that is added to the DOM. In that manner, we can create, in fact, a dynamic score, a responsive score, because when a user changes the dimensions of his screen, or he turns his iPad around or something like that, the web worker starts calculating again and returns the score perfectly for that screen size. So it always looks pretty, it always looks perfect, because that's in fact just what we do. Because we have music XML and we know what is on the score, we can also transpose it or show hide different parts. If you have scores with, for example, a piano part and a vocal part, you can leave out the parts you don't want to see, simply because we have that knowledge. And last but not least, neoScores is offline first. That's very important for musicians, simply because they need to trust that when they get on stage with their sheet music, that it will be available. That if there's no Wi-Fi or very bad Wi-Fi, they would not have problems with it. It's already stressful enough to be on stage as a musician and performing, so you don't want to stress of, oh my God, will there be Wi-Fi? So scores should be available offline too, and that's what we do. So that was neoScores in a nutshell, but the topic of this talk is especially the modular development we use for this web application. And that's what I'm going into now. So first of all, what is modular programming? So it's in fact, the main part of it is that you split off parts of your code into different aspects, different modules, so that each of them is independent and only contains a certain aspect of your code base. That's modular programming, but why would you want to use it? Well, in our case, we had a couple of problems a few months ago. We had a lot of crashes and bugs. I think, yeah, every startup has these things and faces these problems. Well, we faced them too. And we decided, yeah, let's track down what's going on. There were a lot of memory leaks. But it was not so easy to track them down, simply because our code was really coupled, and yeah, it was not always clear what code does what. So it was hard to find. And we decided, yeah, let's just start over, no, not really start over, but break everything up in different modules. And these are the reasons. So first of all, reuse. We at neoScores, we have our viewer on one hand, but we also have a previewer, which is a very small web component, a custom component that can be embedded in pages. For example, the pages of a sheet music publisher who wants to sell neoScores scores. He can embed this little previewer on his page so that users can already see what it will look like. We also have a software development kit that we use for our own development. We develop inside the SDK and then put it in our main application. So we have all these different code bases that mainly use the same components. And while using components and modules, we can share code between them very easily, especially because they need to be independent and should be working on all these different platforms. Second cool thing about modular development is that you can manage different features. So each feature can be a different module. For example, annotations is a different module, audio settings is a different module, appearance settings can be a different module. Those are all features. And you can also just choose what will be in the build file. Maybe even write logic to make sure that for premium users, some modules will not be included, or will be included for premium users, but not for basic users who are not paying for your app. What, in my opinion, is the most important part is that breaking one module does not break your complete app. Since they're independent, they should not be breaking any other stuff. Also, if you use modules, it's also very easy to track down what does this module do, because most of the time they only have a certain aspect or certain thing they should be doing. It's easier to write tests, to debug, and for other developers to find out what it's all about. And last but not least, NPM. All our modules are NPM modules, and we use that while deploying too. So that's why. I've already mentioned Ampersand. Ampersand is a very big player in our modular development because we use it for our app and for our modules. For those of you who are not familiar with it, that's also quite a lot of you. Ampersand is a single-page web app framework, but it's not really a framework at all because it's not coupled. It's a modular kind of framework that leaves out all the stuff you don't want about a framework. It was created by Endiet, a company specialized in Node.js and in JavaScript single-page web app technologies. And when Backbone first became a thing, they started working with it, started writing patches for things that didn't work perfectly for them. At a certain time, they discovered, well, the problem, in fact, is that Backbone is very coupled. It's difficult to use only Backbone model or Backbone collection. So that's in fact, it's created problems for them. So they started creating a version of Backbone that is not coupled, but decoupled in different modules, and that was the birth of Ampersand. So Ampersand is still very similar to Backbone. So those of you who have experience with Backbone, I suggest you just check it out, simply because it's very familiar. You'll recognize a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's modular. I've written an introduction on Ampersand myself, which is on their website. The website also has a lot of cool info and very interesting documents. The documentation is really nice, so it's easy to check out. So I suggest you do so. Okay, and now for some code. I'm not going to live code simply because I don't have the time for it, and I'm only showing you some examples of how we do it to show you our philosophy. Okay, so let's get to some code. So first of all, the first thing you do with your app is booting it. And in single-page web apps, that's through an index file or something like that, and that makes you boot the app. So you set up all the necessary things for your app. So in this case, you require a router and stuff. What's special about our modular development is that we use this config variable here to add children to the app. The app here is, as you can see, an ampersand state, and that's in fact very similar to Backbone model. So our app is a model, and that model has children and collections. Collections are groups or arrays of models. Then we have our config file. In real life, it's larger because we have a lot of other configurations. And in this config file, we have the children and the collections, like in the index file. And here we require them. So you can simply list all the components you need in this way, and it's very simple. To just require them in one file. Okay, I don't know if some of you saw this on a previous slide, but you have, there was something required to the app context mixin, and that's something special we encountered during development that we had to tackle. So in our philosophy, it's very important that modules attach themselves to a general context so that they can communicate with each other. They need this context to communicate when they are, in fact, they are independent, but they need to know something about the general app they're attached to. But we faced a problem with that, simply because I've mentioned we have this previewer, and the thing is, if you have 3 previewers on one page, how the hell should the previewer know which context is his? So the context start mixing up, and we had a problem. So we created a mixin to fix that. So this is the mixin. It's in fact very simple. It's just a JavaScript file, vanilla.js. So in fact, it's just a getter that starts searching for the context on the parent of a model or a collection. So in the index file, you attach models and collections as children of the application. And in that case, the application is the parent. The application creates the context, and then you can get to the context of the app through this getter. So this getter checks, is there a parent? Does it have a context? Yeah, return it. Does it have a collection? No, if it's a collection, not a model, it returns the context in the same way. And if there is no context yet, in the case of the main application, a new one is created and returned. The second part of the mixin is hooking it into ampersand code. We do that by just hooking into some methods that are run while initializing models and collections. To use this mixin, you just have to add it in this way. CTX mixin here. And then you can use this.ctx as a variable, always. So that's kind of the context mixin, but I thought I'd share this with you simply because it's something we faced and found a solution for. Then we have the setup of the modules. So like I said, each module should be independent. Each module should create its own, or should refer to the right context. But it also should initialize its own dependencies. It's very important just to create this independency. So in this case, this is a view, an example of an ampersand view. And so this view initializes its own model, which is a dialog. This is an example of a dialog in our app. It also creates its own root element, so that you don't have to add it in your static file, or that if, or for some reason you forget, yeah, it's still initialized. And then, if needed, you can attach to the context too. But that's not really the best way to work, because then you create dependencies, in fact. Because you create a dependency on this .ct.dialog, and if it's not there, you get errors. That's why we like to communicate between modules in another way. We like to use Ampersand Events, which is another cool module from the Ampersand stack. And it's a lot like Backbone Events. So it replaces event handling, and it cleans up after you, so it's a really nice module to use. So how do we use this? Well, this is another example of a dialogue. Here we create an event listener that calls back to this.show. And then in another module, the score module, for example, we can trigger the same event handler, and then we throw in some object we want to show to the this.show function. So in this case, we can link between these two without breaking anything, simply because if the event for some reason can't really find its handler, it does not throw a fatal error or anything, it just nothing happens. But in fact, the user will not be prompted with weird errors or stuff like that, or weird things in the console. So that's our way of looking at this. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is our offline first thing, which is very important for us. We have created our own Ampersand module for this, which is Ampersand Offline First. It was written by Bob Hamlock, our CTO. He's very proud of it, by the way, and we are too. So this is an actual module on NPM. If you're interested in offline first functionality, you should check it out. It's very easy to use. You just have to require the Ampersand Offline First modular collection, and then just set the offline property to true. To save it offline first. How does this thing work? Well, when you use Ampersand model and Ampersand collection, REST collection, I'm sorry, which are the versions of which are in fact very similar to Backbone model and Backbone collection, and have API endpoints, and can use the fetch or the save or destroy methods to map on these endpoints. This in Ampersand, those are dependent on Ampersand sync, another module. And in fact, all that Ampersand Offline First does is hook into Ampersand sync and just save it offline too with local forage. A very cool thing to look into. Okay, so that's all I've got. I hope I inspired you a little bit. So yeah, just throw some questions at me. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, round of applause, please, for Silke. All right, we had our first question up there. Why XML instead of JSON formats? You got the music XML. Is that why it was originally?
The thing is, there isn't a good standard for music JSON yet. So the thing is, the second thing is that the sheet music editors like Finale, Sibelius, they export to XML.
Right. Okay.
So that's why there's not yet a real JSON format. But the thing is, in fact, we use JSON as our format to transport it from our server to the client.
Right.
But
So you're already doing a translation layer.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
that.
a lot of
Okay.
translations. We have a sanitizer that fixes a lot of stuff that
Okay.
goes wrong with exporting the XML, and then we map it to JSON, and that's music JSON. That's what we use in our app.
So music JSON is another kind of standard, or
It's not a standard yet. Hopefully one day it will be, but
it's not something
it's
you guys
our
came
thing.
up with. Like,
yeah,
it is
it's
something
something
out there.
we're doing. In fact, yes.
Okay. Sorry. It is or isn't something out there? Sorry, I didn't understand. Music JSON is something out there or something you guys created?
There are versions of it. There are people also trying to create music JSON, but it's not a standard at
Not
all.
standard.
No.
Okay, so so music XML is much more of a standard.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Simply because the editors export it. That's the main. As long as they don't export JSON, yeah, it
That's
can
what
be
you've
really.
got to work with. So
Yeah, of course.
yeah, sure. Okay. Any questions? Let's start from some questions from the audience. Good. Sorry? Oh, there's one up there. Will the software retract the playing to turn the pages?
Oh yeah, we get that question a lot. Well, ideally it would, but and in fact it already works. We don't have it in our app now, but we have some kind of prototype doing this. But in fact, that only works for real if you only play one instrument. So if you're playing the piano, it works, and if you're playing in a band or at a concert, it's not possible to, or it may be possible, but a lot of PhDs are working on that now, simply to make out which instrument is which and stuff.
Okay, interesting. When the stuff is coming to the browser, like when you're rendering it in the browser, is that a difficult thing to actually render the sheet music, or is there some standard in HTML5 that is allowing you to do that, or how are you?
No, it's all very custom. We've written all the code ourselves, so it's also all kinds of different modules. Every module does one thing. For example, one module calculates, it puts everything in one giant bar, in fact.
Okay.
And then it calculates how long the score will be, and then it cuts it up into systems to render them beneath each other. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I'm getting you.
Okay.
Yeah,
because it's sometimes difficult to explain.
Right, but that's actually coming out in the end.
drawings.
Is that coming out in some form of HTML or is that
in SVG?
SVG? Okay,
SVG,
right. So it's
yeah.
coming out as some sort of graphic in the end that
Yeah.
you're producing. Right. Okay. All right. I like that one. I must have that blank look on my face. I just look like an idiot. I know I do. All right, so tracking in browsers, so you are bringing it back to SVG format to display. That seems to be the greatest way.
Yes.
Is there anything, like, do you see in the future some sort of standard for this developing, in the HTML5 standard, or that's probably never going to be something in that, and you guys are always going to have to do something like an SVG format?
Well, I hope that one day maybe there will be some kind of standard, but the thing is the music XML standard is now moving to the W3C consortium. Mm-hmm. And they're also talking about maybe implementing some kind of music CSS and stuff.
Oh, right, okay.
So maybe one day there will be some kind of HTML elements simply to render music, which runs on music XML. It would be super, but yeah, that's for the very far future, I think.
Okay, this is actually an interesting one. Is there any tools that can play the MIDIs directly? Like, can you play it as a MIDI directly off this music XML or something like that?
Yeah. In fact, we can. We use the music XML to play MIDI.
Right, you just stick a music XML in
Yeah.
it.
No, it's in fact we also use it. So we use the music XML. We create our JSON. We create our SVG. We render points or kind of IDs inside our SVG, and those are used to create the playback.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, it's.
Very good. I think we should move on unless there's anything else from the audience right now. Yes, sir. There.
So you talked a lot about the technical parts of your guys' product, but how are you changing people to want to use electronic sheet music versus normal sheet music?
That's a tough one, yeah. Well, I'm totally not a business type, so I'm just a very simple developer. But yeah, it's in fact a bit of a challenge to move people away from their sheet music, their paper sheet music. We don't have a marketing budget at the moment, so.
Okay. What's the number one thing? So there's someone who's playing. What's the number one thing you would say to someone? Get rid of that sheet music. Use this. What's the number one thing? Why they should do that?
I would do it simply because you have all in one place, and those papers, yeah, you can lose them. They fall off your pupitre. How do you call it in the music stand?
Yeah, that thing. Yeah,
that thing. Yeah.
Right, okay,
So
so we
it
can just
is-
have it on the pad there, look
Yeah,
at it,
and it's
all
all
in
in
one
one
spot.
place.
You can do
And
that.
also, if you have the neoScores shop where you can all buy it, now you have to go search for the cheapest or even.
Okay, you don't have to go to the music store and buy books of
Yeah.
music and things like that. You can just go
But also,
straight.
if you already work digitally, but with PDFs, a lot of musicians already use PDF
Right.
on their iPad, but you have to still buy the sheet music from different shops.
Yeah, it's going to be awkward, a PDF,
Yeah.
and then you're going to still have to
And
move
you-
about the page turning problem again. and-
Yeah, and it's if you zoom in, it just zooms in on an image, so you don't have the re-rendering, and yeah, that's the cool thing about neoScores. That it all re-renders and fits perfectly on your screen.
Very good. Was there one more question at the back there that I see or not? Or that's has been successfully answered. Going once, going twice, sold. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Silke. Please, round of applause for her. There you are. Thank you.